Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. All backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
Told a lot of lies about achievement. They called you when they got you to believe it. Thumb and finger held to their foreheads in an L shape. Trapped in a capitalist hellscape. Let's fight back and have some talks about class and the massive cost of the disastrous plots of fascists and Nazis, fat cats and fox. It's 1,000 natural shocks. A Bad with Money podcast.
Hello and welcome to 1,000 Natural Shocks, a Bad with Money podcast. I'm your host, Gabe Dunn. And with me today, we have Ron. Do you want to tell my audience who you are and what you do?
So my name is Ron Placone. I'm a comedian, podcaster, filmmaker, and I have a new stand-up show called Anti-Fascist Pasta Night that I'm taking to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. The run kicks off on August 6th, so anyone who will be in Edinburgh, come check that out. And I have an anti-capitalist movie out called Left at Wall, which is all about money because it's inspired by the GameStop incident that happened. And I'm also a cat dad, a husband, beach enthusiast, music nerd. You know, the list goes on and on.
I like when people include personal details too.
Hockey guy, you know.
Yeah. What is an anti-fascist pasta night?
So anti-fascist pasta nights have been around since the fall of Mussolini. Mussolini hated pasta, and I talk about this in the show. He was trying to discourage the Italians from eating pasta. One reason was the wheat supply issue, but another reason was all of his ridiculous eugenics belief that, pasta makes you weak, blah, blah, blah. And so after Mussolini was removed from power, a bunch of partisans started serving free pasta in the streets in celebration. And Anti-Fascist Pasta Night was born as a result. It's still celebrated actually last weekend. It's usually acknowledged around July 25th. And it's mostly in Italy, but they do take place in other parts of the world too. There were some right here in the States. Boston had one, New York had one, Oakland, California had one, and we did one in LA, specifically in the neighborhood I live. I live in the San Pedro neighborhood, which ironically is the Little Italy of Los Angeles. That's not why I live there. It's just a coincidence. But so we had an actual anti-fascist pasta night, but I decided to call the show Anti-Fascist Pasta Night, because I talk a lot about the fascism going on in the United States, and I tie it into what happened in Italy, and I talk about pasta, and I also kind of brought in being Italian American because there's been a lot going on in that community, especially with the Zohar Mamdani campaign. Italian Americans are often painted as a right-wing reactionary bunch, and there's years of propaganda around that, but there's always been a sharp reaction to it. And there's a bunch of groups, most of them in New York. Piace is one of them, a historian named Stephen Trilli, and then, of course, the Italians for Zoran, which have evolved into Italian anti-fascists, that are kind of speaking up about this and saying, hey, we're not a monolith, and a lot of us don't like Columbus Day, and a lot of us are leftist, and we have stories to tell, too. Seeing that happening, I decided, well, I really want to play my role in all this, and so I decided to go with Anti-Fascist Pasta Night, and that's all in the show. You'll learn to love cats and hate capitalism if you don't already.
I have so many questions. Okay. So Mussolini hated pasta. Was pasta a huge thing at that time in Italy?
Oh, yeah. Pasta was one of the most beloved dishes, and Mussolini was trying to turn people away from pasta. And then he banned coffee as well. And then the Italian people said, we're going to kill you now. There was other stuff, but from a food perspective, those were the big ones. Pasta and coffee. Those were the big ones food-wise that he really ticked a lot of people off. Did other horrible things too. But, if we're sticking to pasta, that's
This is like, I always say that the only way the people will rise up is if, in the US right now, is if they cut the internet.
yeah.
And that is so funny to like go back and be like, oh, what was the internet back then? Which if they cut pasta and coffee in the US today, I'm now realizing it would have the same effect.
Oh yeah. Oh, people would just go nuts. I mean, I guess he thought that maybe people would be too tired to do anything about it, but they were not. They were not.
This might be the only thing that saves us is someone trying to convince right now Trump that he should get rid of coffee and pasta.
Well, you know what? There are some weird parallels when you think about it, because obviously there hasn't been a pasta ban in the United States, but there was that situation with his ridiculous tariffs where the price of pasta was going to go up by like 100%. And people were freaking out about that, and Italy was freaking out about it, and eventually they stopped it from happening. But that was on the peripheral, and also there's been a bunch of issues with coffee coming in because of the tariffs as well. So the price of coffee has gone up, and you've seen some of these, BS pro-capitalist articles from the Wall Street Journal and other places, telling people to cut back on coffee. So there are some weird parallels and stuff like that. So
The millennial world, they really told us, because this is kind of the birth of this podcast back then, they really told us, don't buy coffee, but also be the most productive people you've ever seen in your life.
Right.
Doesn't make sense.
yeah, if we just cut back on the avocado toast, we could afford these houses that have quadrupled in prices while wages have stayed stagnant. It's that toast each morning that's really holding us back. I'm an elder millennial.
Me too.
Yeah, so we're millennials. We're among the elders, and we are such an interesting generation, I think, because like we're just old enough to remember a pre-internet world, but we were also on the precipice of it because we were the first adopters, because we were the youngest. So we really also kind of shaped what that world became. So we're really the only generation that has a full foot in each lane, and we also were sold the completely bogus bill of goods that was already outdated by the time Gen X got to it, but was really, really outdated and just a complete lie by the time we got to it. And it's an interesting generation to be part of. We had the whole shut up and be a man element going on, but also the whole, hey, we're acknowledging that a mental illness is a real thing now. So it's like we kind of got a little bit of everything, and we got the scars to show for it.
So Mussolini cuts pasta and coffee. What happens next? What do people do? They start these nights, or they rise up? What's the next thing that happens?
Well, so the actual first night was literally when he was removed from power. After he was removed from power, a bunch of partisans, I think the first square was in the Emilia-Romagna region, which is near Bologna. I don't know the exact square that it was, but yeah, this partisan family just started serving pasta in the streets, and it kind of blossomed from there. But I mean, throughout his reign, I mean, they make it out like the Italian people were very much in line with Mussolini. That's not accurate. There were partisans the entire time, even before he completely linked up with Hitler. There were partisans who were protesting in their villages, who refused to show up to the mandatory events, who were pushing back against all of this. And it only escalated as, World War II escalated. Eventually, the partisans were literally fighting the Nazis in their villages. And the interesting thing about all of it is that a lot of them did not live to tell their stories, but when you look into it, whenever it was a fair fight, they won 100% of the time. They beat the Nazis every single time when it was a fair fight because they believed in what they were fighting for, I think. And so yeah, it's a really powerful thing. And I see the most parallels with the fascism that we have now. I see more parallels to fascist Italy than anything else. It's also, when you compare it to what's going on in Italy right now, there's a lot of interesting parallels too.
What's happening in Italy right now?
Well, they have Giorgia Meloni, who's a fascist. I mean, she's not quite as extreme as what we got, but she's a fascist. Yet, the Italian people have been incredible as far as protesting for Palestine. They've shut Rome down. They've shut cities down. The dockers refuse to ship weapons to Israel. And they've been doing that for years, on the docks of Livorno, on the docks of Genoa, and it's because they have the strong unions backing them up. They know how that works over there in countries like Italy and France and whatnot. Simultaneously, culturally, Because, obviously I'm a big proponent of culture in a time of dismay. I think it's important. I think it helps us, and I think it helps tell these stories. One of the most popular figures right now is a comic book artist named Zero Kalkari, who just released his third animated series on Netflix. He is an unapologetic anti-fascist, anti-capitalist leftist who has also helped shine the light on a bunch of left-wing Italian punk bands and stuff in his show. And I actually haven't watched the newest season yet. I've been kind of waiting to dive in. But the first two seasons were absolutely brilliant. The second season is all about fighting anti-immigrant sentiments in Rome as anti-fascist. It's a series that never would have been made in the United States, especially if it took place in the US. But I guess because it took place elsewhere, they allowed it to be on Netflix here. But it's absolutely brilliant. It's wild. So you have all that going on in Italy right now.
Wow. What do you mean by they would beat the Nazis? In my head, I'm like, and what did they do? Let me just take some notes.
Well, they literally would go into villages and fight them, try to kill them. And, a lot of times they did because they had a very, very powerful military. And the partisans were just, I can't speak directly to how organized they were or weren't, but they were basically just anti-fascist who decided we're not going to lay down without a fight. We are going to physically defend ourselves. There were a couple of particular monuments kind of near Rome. When it was a fair fight, they beat the Nazis. And one time, there was this one particular fight where the partisans drove the Nazis out. They beat them. So then the Nazis came back with a lot of militarization and just did a massacre of the entire area. But, when it was a fair fight, the partisans won. And had it been a fair fight the whole time, they would have won.
What happened after Mussolini was not in power anymore?
I mean, they have had like a fairly, progressive and left-wing history up until about Berlusconi. And then Berlusconi was definitely a shift to the right. And then Draghi was he was kind of centrist by their standards. Like in the US, he'd be considered center left at least, but by their standards, he was, pretty much a centrist. And then of course they had Giorgia Meloni, and when Giorgia Meloni got elected, it was the lowest turnout they have had since Mussolini. Ironically enough, I was in Italy when Giorgia Meloni got elected because my Italian cousin was getting married then. It was just a coincidence. It's not like he's that big of an enthusiast. Like I gotta time my wedding with the election, but he was getting married. And so I was literally in Italy the day Giorgia Meloni got elected. People were not happy where I was, but I remember very distinctly that the same day she got elected, my train happened to be 3 hours late. This is the one thing you fascists are supposed to do right. These are supposed to run on time. That's like the one thing you guys do that isn't completely terrible. Now you don't even do that. My train is 3 hours late. A fascist is in office. All the Italians should be demanding a refund right now. She should be removed immediately.
That's so funny. What is the Italians for Zoran?
So it was a group that started on Instagram for, the Zoran Mamdani campaign. It slowly evolved. I mean, first of all, there was a standoff between the more kind of right-wing reactionary Italian-American sect who we have, thanks to a journalist named George DeStefano, we now have a name for them. We call them Magaroni. So there was the Magaroni sect, and then there were these kind of new, more leftist Italian Americans, and they actually had a standoff about Columbus Day issue. It was like literally that one episode of Sopranos in real life, which was really cool. And, as an Italian American, and this is part of the reason I called the show Anti-Fascist Pasta Night, as an Italian American, I've always celebrated the culture, celebrated the food. I embrace my family's team, Go Forza Napoli, but I also, kind of have my own take on all of it. Like that's why I'm a big Livorno fan too, as a leftist. And there's always been this very conservative slanted narrative around Italian Americans that isn't entirely accurate. We're not a monolith, just like any other group of people. And so Italians for Zoran really started pushing back against that. And it wasn't just them. There's another group called Piace. It stands for Progressive Italian American Cultural Exchange. So there were all these like different groups happening that were just saying, hey, we our stories matter too, and they're often just neglected because the truth of the matter is Italian Americans played a big role in what unions mean in this country, because a lot of the Italian immigrants, they were, the stone workers up in Vermont, and they had unions over there, so they brought it here. So they were a very big group in that. There's a lot of anarchist thought that can be traced to Italian Americans. There's been anti-Columbus Day protests led by Italian Americans since the 30s. The first socialist mayor of New York was not Mamdani. It was actually an Italian American. So, I mean, there's always been this alternative history going on that's often been neglected. And so Italians for Zoran really, they shined a big light on that. And in October, which was also when I was thinking about the name for my next Fringe show, this historian named Stephen Chirilli, who I've since befriended, he's a leftist Italian-American historian, in cooperation with that account, every day in October, as an alternative to Columbus Day, they posted a piece of leftist Italian-American history every single day. They posted like a meme with like a piece of Italian-American history. And it was amazing. And some of the stuff I already knew, some of it I didn't. Some of it I was learning for the first time. And it was so incredible. And I do think that the moment that we're in right now, it's important to reclaim our radical history as a way to figure out how to move forward. It's important that people need to know that the people in North Dakota love their public bank. And the reason they have that public bank is partially, at least, because of the anarchist farmers, and so as an Italian American, I want to do my part in that. So I want to help amplify the idea that, yeah, we're not, like Italian Americans don't just love Rudy Giuliani and want Columbus Day because they don't understand history, basically, because there's no reason to support that. A ton of Italian Americans don't. Some do. I mean, there's certainly right-wing, Magaroni is still out there, but there's a lot of us who aren't. Why should they just get to claim all the cannoli eating contests? We grew up with that too. That's part of our world too. So yeah, it's really cool to see it happening. And I think it needs to happen, everywhere in this country.
The unions of it all is fascinating because you're right. You do associate Italians with unions, but it doesn't seem like Magaroni would care for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
Well, the police union or maybe it's like that. Maybe it's like that.
Right. They're fine with some of them. They're fine with the police union. Yeah, it's really interesting how selective they are. And a lot of the prominent Italian-American organizations, only amplify that part of it. And you need look no further than the mainstream to find an alternative point of view. I mean, even if you want to just look at the very, very mainstream, okay, we got Pam Bondi, we got Rudy Giuliani, all these people are big Trumpers. So I guess Magaroni, that's most Italian Americans. All right, well, who's one of the most outspoken creators from a fame standpoint against Trump right now? Well, I would say, strictly from a fame standpoint, Bruce Springsteen's among them, Italian American. Who's next to him on stage? Stephen Van Zandt, Italian-American, who also spoke out against apartheid back in the day. Who's touring with them for a special event? Tom Morello, half Italian-American on his mom's side. And by the way, shout out to his mom, Mary, who passed recently at the age of 102. She was an Italian-American activist who has been protesting on the right side of history since at least the civil rights movement, probably earlier. So you don't even need to go past the mainstream to see who played American Idiot at the Super Bowl. Green Day, Billy Joe Armstrong, Italian-American, was honored in the village of his ancestors. So we got representation in the mainstream too. But, a lot of the prominent organizations, i.e. NIAF, who I wrote an open letter to about why I was not renewing my membership, they only kind of shine a light on this very kind of right-wing perspective, and they don't celebrate the cultural contributions of people who kind of see contemporary America differently than they do.
Do you think it comes from a model minority standpoint? Everything you're saying reminds me a lot of Judaism and about how, we have this history of Emma Goldman, anarchist activists, and the tie with Jewish immigrants and anti-fascism and Jewish immigrants with, the people that got arrested in Prairieland. One of the things that they were arrested for is having a zine with Emma Goldman on it, which drove me insane because nothing is new. Do you think it comes from a model minority place where Italians came in, they were not seen as white, now they become right-wing because they need to feel protected?
I think that's definitely a big part of it. And there's people who can dive into that history really deeply. But yeah, there was a time Columbus kind of ties into all of that as well, because there's actually a lot of Mussolini was, I mean, some of the Columbus statues were actually straight from Mussolini, and it's because they wanted Italian Americans to still feel this kind of allegiance with Italy, but also they kind of wanted to give them this message where it's just like, hey, you're not these wasp over here. That's not you. But you're not these brown people either. You're this in between thing. You're this really special thing. And Columbus, he's your guy, and he founded this place. So actually, you're the best of all. And they repeated that propaganda over and over again throughout the years. I mean, all the justifications for Columbus Day, by the way, as a side note, are factually inaccurate. People will say, like, well, it's because of the lynchings in Louisiana. That is not true. The first known remnants of Columbus Day happened 100 years before those lynchings occurred. What we know as Columbus Day, I mean, I guess it's sort of up in the air whether it's still a thing, but what we know as Columbus Day growing up in our generation, that can be traced back to the 30s. The lynchings happened in the 1800s. So it does not line up. That claim connecting it with the lynchings is inaccurate. And also the lynchings received reparations. That was the main reaction to the lynchings, which is, a whole other topic for discussion, because it's one of those things. Well, Italian Americans got reparations.
Wait, I don't know about this.
So I want to say the year was 1891. There was the largest lynching I think it's pretty much the largest lynching in American history, and it was of a group of Italian immigrants. And that's why sometimes the, right-wing reactionary side of the Magaronis, they will say things like, well, the largest lynching was actually of Italians. Did you know
Lord.
that? Did you know that? It was Italian. And it's just like, yes, it was. And we got reparations. So I guess you support it for other people then, too, since it's Italian American, right? And then you watch their heads explode. But yeah, people will sometimes try to justify Columbus Day, saying that Columbus Day was actually sort of in honor of the lynchings, which is not historically accurate, which is not true. And I make the argument that even if it was, why the hell should that guy be the figurehead? Like, it makes no sense. Even if that was true, which it isn't. But even if it was, like, why this guy? Like he was a terrible person by every measurable metric. And so why should he get a day for people that were, murdered that had nothing to do with him,
I want to talk about the Zoran thing where it seemed like he removed Little Italy from the map
Yes. That was so
and
stupid.
everyone went insane. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I made a video about it. So I started doing this video series where one character is literally called Magaroni and the other character is called IAF, which is Italian Anti-Fascist. So what happened with that map, I mean, first of all, it wasn't even Zoran's map. It was made during Eric Adams' campaign. So it wasn't even his thing. Second of all, it was meant to, my understanding of the map was it was meant to highlight actual immigrant neighborhoods that are going on right now and that are kind of more contemporary. Little Italy is just a symbol at this point. It's not like, oh, that's where all the Italians live, and
Right.
like it's basically just a tourist thing. And I'm sure there's good food there. I don't know. I usually don't stop there.
There
when I'm in
is.
New York. I'm sure there is, but it's basically just a tourist thing. So yeah, it wasn't on that map. Neither was Little Syria. I mean, there were a bunch of places that just weren't on that map. But, again, the Magaroni-centric organizations saw this as an opportunity to be like, oh, exclusion. It's like, and really, at the end of the day, they're just really mad that a social democrat is the mayor of New York. They really don't like that. So they're looking for any reason to try to, to try to stigmatize the guy and to try to claim some sort of discrimination that doesn't exist. And our response to it, a lot of us were just saying, gee, you guys are so quick to claim exclusion. Meanwhile, you try to exclude every Italian American who doesn't share your worldview. So how about we actually have a conversation in October, and instead of just having to, being told to bend the knee to your revisionist history for a change. So yeah, I mean, that was just, it was completely ridiculous, but it really did take root. I mean, I literally had friends of mine, who were, like-minded friends of mine who were like, did Zoran do something to Little Italy? I'm like, no, Zoran did not do something to Little Italy.
My God.
So
Oh
yeah.
my God.
So, yeah, that was a doozy.
This is one of millions of ways that Jews and Italians shake hands. We also there is such a divide now between the MAGA Jews and the leftist Jews. I find that the MAGA Jews are constantly searching for ways in which they are oppressed or in danger. And it's almost like a psychological, to me, it's if we can see the danger coming, if we can name it, if we can know what it is and list them all out, even the small ones, we'll be safe. It dilutes our ability to make ourselves safe from anti-Semitism when you can't separate anti-Semitic actions or anti-Semitism from Zionism, Israel. It makes no sense. It goes against every aspect. I mean, I grew up in Jewish day school, Jewish summer camp. I grew up steeped in that. And it doesn't have anything to do with Judaism and its values. It doesn't have anything to do with the ways in which we're taught to ask questions and question authority, the ways in which we are taught to, someone who saves a life saves an entire world and things like that. And that's all in our scripture, the ways in which Judaism is taught. And that goes out the window when it comes to Palestinians. It does. But then leftist Jews are claimed to not be real Jews, even though I just had a conversation with a guy where we were talking about, he had a stand out in the plaza downtown and he was selling literature about communism in Cuba and how communism's great and how Cuba's getting blamed for stuff. And
the Fed's out of options, rate cuts, money printing, balance sheet reversals. They call it policy, but it's really panic. This is in-game economics where hope replaces discipline and the illusion of control finally breaks. They're not cutting rates because things are strong. They're cutting because the system is cracking. Inflation's eating savings. The labor market's stalling. Confidence in the dollar is fading fast. For decades, the Fed built a house of paper. Now they're striking the match that could burn it all down, leaving you to pay the price. When's the last time you actually held the wealth you've spent your life working for? My friends at Noble Gold Investments have been helping Americans move from paper wealth into real tangible assets. Numbers on a screen can disappear, but physical gold and silver, they've outlasted every crisis in history. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com and get your free wealth protection kit today. That's noblegoldinvestments.com for your free wealth protection kit. Discover how simple it is to protect your future. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals, including gold, involves risks. Consult with your tax attorney or financial professional before making an investment decision.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
And the revolutions in Cuba that we don't get taught about. And then I said, yeah, it's like looking through the papers. I was like, yeah, it has a lot to do. It mirrors Gaza in some ways. And he was like, well, I don't know. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, well, I believe Israel has the right to exist. And he's talking about all these things. But then when I got into specifics with him, he didn't quite know. And I found that a lot where they're expecting me to be what they call Gino, Jew in name only. And so they're like, of course you don't have a connection to Israel. You're Jew in name only. And so the guy said, have you ever been to Israel? And I was like, 3 times. And he was like, oh, well, and I was like, I went to Jewish day school, Jewish summer camp, Jewish youth group. I speak the language. Do you want to keep playing this game?
Good for you. and that's beautiful. And that's awesome. And yeah, I mean, so I have Jewish people in my family. Like I have Jewish people in my family. So
So you talk with your hands and you don't know your volume and you're talking over everybody?
A lot of loudness in my family. Not a lot of loudness in my family, and my nieces and nephews are my precious little pizza bagels. I love them so much. And so, I'm careful with that comparison because obviously, we're talking, I don't want to make it out like they're the same in
Mm-hmm.
severity because they're
Mm-hmm.
not, so I'm careful to like do that. But there is sort of this not in our name element, like for as long as I've been awake to the world around me,
Yeah.
Columbus Day has always been a source of some embarrassment and a certain like not in our name. Like I don't claim this guy, and I
Mm-hmm.
am proud of my heritage. I do appreciate being Italian American, and there's a tons of things about it that I celebrate. And if anyone came at me with that, I would have a similar reaction to you where I'd be like, okay, we can talk sports teams over in Italy. I can tell you the villages my ancestors came from. I can speak the language. I can give you some of my favorite pasta recipes. How deep do you want to go? Because I
Mm-hmm.
can do this all day. Let's do it. But
And I have found some of the most staunch right-wing Jews here have not been to Israel.
really?
And I say to that, I wrote about this because I was like, I'm gonna get in trouble, but nobody looked at it. But or I don't know who reads my Substack, but it's like you like these right-wing Ashkenazi Jews here in Los Angeles, Zionism, I'll say Zionist Jews, um, they wouldn't like Israelis. Maybe they haven't met many
Mm,
Israelis. They would not like it. The not to like I know a lot of anti-Zionism is about how Jews are or Israelis are white and that it's just like kind of faking this whatever. But after this long period of time or a few generations, you're not gonna like Israelis because you guys don't. I've worked customer service in your neighborhoods. You don't like people that are different, people that are loud, people that are like rude or blunt. Like you don't like this. You like control and order and like very clean synagogues and like very nice
mm,
um you want your kids to act a certain way. And if you went to Israel, you'd be met with people who are kind of closer to Arabs, kind of closer to like we have more in common or Israelis have more in common there than they do with American Jews, in my opinion.
that's interesting.
So American Jews often go there, and the joke is, oh, like Israelis are loud, Israelis are blunt, Israelis are their customs are really different, and the men are very aggressive in the clubs and all this stuff that is known as like stereotypes that's played as like quirky. But if it was brown people, when it is brown people here in the US, these white Zionist Jews lose their fucking minds. But so
Mm,
I think they're pretending to feel they give these people, what did I call them? Like like wise toddlers where they treat Israelis like, "Oh, they don't have the same human standards as us." But it's okay because they live in the homeland and they intrinsically are holier. So they're infantilized and then also treated as if they hand you a rock from the street, that means something.
mm.
So
Yeah, well,
it's this almost like like holy toddlers.
wow. Yeah.
It's
I know that like I'm just so thankful, especially as somebody who I'm not Jewish myself, but I have Jewish people in my family and am o- obviously full-throatedly against the genocide that's happening.
mhm,
I'm just so thankful for voices like yours and voices like Bat Hasbara and Katie Helper and Jewish Voices for Peace, who are, loudly declaring not in our name when it comes to this
mhm,
genocide because that's the old Western pro-war trope that they've been using forever. Oh, you're against what the Israeli government doing? Well, you must be anti-Semitic, which is, ridiculous on so many levels.
mhm,
But it's always nice, and the one thing, it's always nice that there's these voices that are really, breaking down those walls, like yours and others. And the one thing I always love to point to too, like so I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania,
mhm,
and I guess it was about maybe 8 years ago at this point, but there was that big synagogue shooting
mhm.
in Pittsburgh,
Yes.
and that was, I mean, that was my parents lost friends in that. I mean, it was
It's Tree of Life
the
synagogue.
Tree of
Yeah.
Life, Tree of Life, which was very, I mean, it was atrocious.
Mm-hmm.
That was an anti-Semitic act. That was
Mm-hmm.
anti-Semitism in its most barbaric and bold and brutal and violent form. And that synagogue, at one point in time, and I'm not going to claim this is reflexive of the views of everybody at that synagogue because I have no clue, but that synagogue, at least at one point in time, had not in our name banners in front of their synagogue and the
Wow.
genocide banners out in front of their synagogue. And so I always love to tell people, I'm like, hey, if you think that being against a genocide is anti-Semitic, go tell them first.
Mm-hmm.
Go to Tree of Life and tell them how anti-Semitic they are. The group of
Mm-hmm.
people that were victims of the most barbaric act of anti-Semitism that can be committed. I mean, a guy literally went in and shot people.
In a synagogue.
In a synagogue. Go tell them how anti-Semitic they are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also misplaced, I think, because I don't think having an allegiance to another country is helpful to us. I think it's interesting when the US government gives a lot of money to Israel and then Jews here in the US treat that as if this is helpful to them. Oh, they're pro-Israel. Oh, they're giving money to Israel. That means they're not anti-Semitic and they're being helpful to us. But you don't have healthcare. Like, you're a Jew, but you're also a person. You don't have healthcare. You don't have clean air. You don't have the ability to, you don't have gun control. You don't have the ability to, pay for college without going into insane debt. You're mistaken that the government is taking care of you because they're taking care of Israel. You don't live there.
Right.
And the idea that it's good to have Israel so we can run there. Well, what are you running from? You're running from a United States where it's not safe for you. Why is it not safe for you? Because of this stuff. It's like a circle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is the goal that it's untenable for us to live here, so we all have to move to Israel? So then all the Jews are gone from the US, which is what the evangelical government wants. One, because they believe it will bring about the Messiah, and two, because they don't want us here. And this is what drove me nuts, is that NSPM 7 came out, which I don't know. You must know NSPM 7. So NSPM 7 comes out, which dictates all the stuff that's anti-American. And one of the things on the list is anti-Christianity. So I bring that to Jewish people. I go, you want to talk about anti-Semitism? It's in writing right here. The government right here is saying, if you're anti-Christian, you are terrorist. You are not American. Why isn't anyone up in arms about that? Why aren't you guys protesting that? Why aren't you guys turning on Trump about that? It's that. And then I brought that up to that guy I was talking to, and he didn't know what I was talking about.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is like people just don't like people just aren't aware of the layers. Which, by the way, that report was one of the other reasons I called the show Anti-Fascist Pasta Night, because I was debating titles, and then between all the Italian American stuff, and then also when they were just like, if you're being anti-fascist is terrorism thought, I was like, well, now I gotta call the show Anti-Fascist Pasta Night.
It's so wild because, okay, if Antifa is terrorism, then what are you? If anti-fascism is terrorism, then that makes you fascist.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing some full mask off moments.
They love it. They want to.
I mean, they love it. They want to be fascist. I mean, there's dog whistle after dog whistle. I mean, just look at what RFK is doing to public health. I mean, this is eugenics. This is literally eugenics. And also, you want to talk about blatant anti-Semitism. The anti-Semitic dog whistles he was repeating, those bogus conspiracies around COVID. It spares Akashic Jews. Like that's anti-Semitic dog whistling. I think his brain is too damaged to even know that's what he's doing. But yet people are like, well, he's quote pro-Israel though, like he's pro-genocide. So I guess I had conversations with friends of mine who were Jewish, who were all in for that guy, who were just
Yeah.
all in for that guy. And I'm like, did you hear what he said about
Right.
like how is that like this guy is warped? And
That's
yeah,
why we let ourselves, anyone who's pro-Israel, we just vote for. And that's why we let ourselves have a worse life. And yeah, it doesn't, someone being pro-Israel has nothing to do with whether you can drink the water here. So yeah, I don't know.
yeah, especially if you're in Michigan right now.
Michigan, I mean, there's so many things there. Wyoming and Montana are closing in on the Endangered Species Act because they want to fuck up the national parks. There's all kinds of stuff where we're not even going to be able to live here, and we're not going to be able to live in Israel either because we're making it worse over there. So really, you should be caring. Like, it's just wild to be like, that's my one issue. That's my one issue. It makes no sense. And yeah, I mean, the other thing is, I think it's people came here as immigrants and they were talked to. They were said, I'm sure. I think it was similar when Italians came here. They're vermin. They're overcrowding. They're making our neighborhoods different. It's the same stuff they're saying about Latinos now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know how these Jews and Italians, and I assume Irish Catholics, like how do they not see the parallels?
Yeah, I mean, and I think a lot of it is just like, well, we'll go up the ladder and then kick it out, you know.
Exactly.
And the one big thing for me, talking about recent stuff, was the whole birthright citizenship issue. And there was that one Italian American guy, Mike Rulli or whatever his name is, who was like really, really adamant about we got to get rid of birthright citizenship. Meanwhile, this same guy was pushing for Italy recently. Restricted their citizenship by descent laws. Like they made it way more strict, citizenship by descent laws. And he was, really vocally against that. Now, I personally don't have a problem with citizenship by descent laws, but how hypocritical is it to think that like you want Americans to be able to get citizenship in another country easier and you think they should have the right to that, while simultaneously making it harder for people in the United States? How hypocritical is that? Like that's like hypocritical to the nth degree. And also, like, yes, not all countries have birthright citizenship. That's true. But here in the United States, we've had it for a long time because it made sense with the way immigration was happening here. And if we ever got rid of it, it would be an absolute disaster. And when people are like, well, my family, my ancestors came here and played by the rules and da-da-da. Are you sure about that? Because, yeah, as one thing we all agree on is that, yes, there was a time in this country where Jews were very much mistreated as immigrants, where Italians were very mistreated as immigrants. So it was incredibly common for people to start families before that naturalization paperwork was settled, which means there's a good chance that technically that means your firstborn ancestor wouldn't have been a citizen, which, depending on how the line transpired from there, could technically mean you're not a citizen. So you really think ending birthright citizenship's a good idea?
Yeah. Yeah, and it just shifts who it affects the most. It just shifts who the vermin du jour is.
Yeah, there's always a scapegoat. You always need a
Right.
scapegoat.
They made it easier to become an Italian citizen?
Oh, they made it harder.
Oh, they made it harder.
Yeah, they made it harder. It was a fairly generous citizenship by descent policy. And they were just getting overwhelmed at the consulates, especially in the United States. No idea why, but they were getting overwhelmed at the consulates in the United States. And there were some people taking advantage of the situation, unfortunately. But because of that, they made the rules a lot more strict. I was actually one of the people impacted by it. I was working on mine, and I had spent 4 years gathering documents and a significant amount of money on translators and lawyers, et cetera, et cetera. And then the law changed, and I no longer qualified. So, it's being battled out in the I think now they took it to an EU court,
Oh.
and the Italian Supreme Court has been deliberating on it, but they've been kind of just batting it around and kicking it down the hill. So I have no idea what's gonna happen. I mean, I kind of just accepted, well, the law's different now, and I guess that's how it goes. But there was all kind of speculation at first on what they were gonna do. Like first it was like, well, you have to speak the language, which I was like, well, that's fine. And then they were like, you have to want to have ties to Italy or live there or something like that. And I was like, well, that's fair. You know, if you want
Mhm.
to get this, you should want to live there and partake in their economy. I get that. Um, but then they just changed it by when you were born, literally. Like they made like a generational cutoff. And I was like, well, I can't change the day I was born. I can't do anything about that. I can,
Oh.
I can try to, like I can embrace a culture. I can, learn a language. I can, live in a place, but I can't change. So on a personal level and just on a societal level, I'm confused why they went the route that they did. Like, why wouldn't you want, especially since you're a depopulating country, why wouldn't you want people who want to live and work in Italy? You know what I
They're
mean?
depopulated? What do you mean?
I think Italy is a depopulating country. Yeah, I mean they have more deaths than births. I'm fairly
Well, were
certain.
they hit? They were hit really hard by COVID.
Oh yeah, they were hit really hard by the pandemic, and one thing that, and again, she's a terrible prime minister, but one thing that she did that I thought was very smart is and it wasn't just her, it was, the entire government, but they took a lot of the relief money, like the EU relief money from the pandemic, and they really invested in upping their broadband because they wanted to attract remote workers and they wanted more people to, come and live in Italy. Um, so I think that was pretty smart, but that it's like kind of being, but then there's this other side of it where they also made it harder to get citizenship by descent, and they also are really tough on immigration. So it's almost like they kind of have this yin and yang of, well, we need people here, so here's these work visas, but oh no, not these people, and oh no, not these people, and our anti-immigrant sentiment is strong enough to even affect people of Italian descent even. So yeah, it's very strange. It's very strange.
More women fascists.
More,
More
yeah, right.
women fascists.
We just need to break the ceiling with more women fascists.
Representation matters.
Yeah. Oh, there was some of that. There was some of that when she got elected.
No.
Oh yes. Oh yes. I mean, I literally like was posting about it, and somebody's like, "Well, can't you just appreciate that they elected a female leader?" I'm like, "She's a fascist. She's a fascist." Like,
Oh my god. Yeah, it's like there's Sarah Palin or something, or it's like, oh, we need to have a woman in office, but she has to line up with our values. I wonder if the Republicans would nominate a woman here in the US. I don't know that they would.
see, I think they would if it was just they were going to get what they wanted. I mean, I think Republicans know how to just get what they want. They know how to message. They know how to just, run the oligarchy,
Mhm.
basically. And Democrats are usually just, useless pawns
I
in
know.
abetting that. And the contemporary American liberal, it's like they could see through this stuff. They just choose not to. It's just like, well, can't you just be happy they elected a woman? The woman's a fascist. Yeah, but it's a woman. It's just like, okay, if Marjorie Taylor Greene or, like Lauren Boebert was running for president, would you vote for her? No. Okay, so this isn't beyond you. You can grasp this.
Oh my god, it's Erica Kirk. That's who they run. Can you imagine?
I could actually.
I feel like I'm like, they're gonna marry her off to JD Vance, and then they'll be the new king and queen of America. And nobody even likes JD Vance.
What do you think's going to happen to his current wife?
Not good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see that because a lot of his fans don't like the fact that he has a wife who isn't white. So
I Did you ever see there was this thing where he had a friend who was a trans guy and they were friends for years and years and years, totally fine. And the trans guy published like letters between them and stuff or emails of them being friends and everything's fine. And then as soon as he gets closer and closer to the nomination, he drops him and
No.
becomes, there was like a whole thing of this person writing, I don't know where my friend JD went.
Whoa, I've not heard about this. What
It was
were
like a
the
law school friend.
Did you read the emails? What were the emails like?
It was like
just kind of like, "Hey man, are we hanging out this weekend?" or like what?
they were talking about, yeah, it's in the New York Times. They were, wait, let me see. Okay, yeah. Sophia Nelson, a former close friend of JD Vance. It's in stark contrast to the Vance Nelson knew for more than a decade. The JD Vance was at Nelson's bedside with homemade baked goods after they went through gender transition related surgery.
Wow.
Yeah, and were buddies, and then this person gave a bunch of interviews and talked about how they don't recognize who this person is.
Wow.
Yeah, heartbreaking. That's why I'm speaking out. Yeah, it was wild.
So many people just sold their soul for this cult.
If he's listening, and I hope he is, what would you say to him now? I miss you. I miss the person that was thoughtful, that really took time to try to understand issues. It's just mean-spirited, and that's not the person I believe you to be.
Wow.
Devastating.
I don't know if this makes me despise JD Vance more or
Yeah.
less, because part of me's like, oh my God, there is a human in there. But then part of me's like, oh, he knows better.
Yeah.
Like he knows better, and yet he's still
Yeah.
doing. I mean, so many people sold their soul for this freaking cult, I mean, and hopefully, I really hope at the end of all of this, all of their political futures are done.
Nuremberg trials.
Yeah, that would be ideal. That would be ideal. Nuremberg trials would totally be ideal. But at the very, very, very least, at least their political futures are done. Yeah, a jail cell would be preferred. But if we
It's
can't
hard
have
to be
that-
a prison abolitionist when you wish all of them went to jail.
right.
It's so complicated.
Yeah. No, that is a tough thing to grapple with. It's like, well, I do
Maybe
think
in the
there's some
US, maybe
people-
they go to The Hague or something.
There we go. I think that's
Yeah.
a healthy. Yeah. We'll just send them to The Hague,
Well,
or just start a new prison just for them.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. Where can people find you and your work? And if they want to come to your Fringe show, I don't think maybe people are not super comedy knowledgeable here, but Fringe is very cool. It's a festival in Edinburgh, Scotland, where you guys perform for like 30 days in a row, right?
Pretty much, yeah. It's so much fun. It's like it's like just this summer fun time comedy camp, and it's not just comedy. It's everything. I mean, like theater's there, music's there, anything you could imagine. So yeah, it's a blast, and people can find me. RonPlacone.com is my website. I'm Ron Placone on all the socials. My Fringe show runs August 6th through 30th in Edinburgh, Scotland. It's part of the free Fringe, so you don't need tickets. Just show up, and you can find information on my website at ronplacone.com. My show's at 3:45 each day. And if you're not in Edinburgh, you can watch my movie, Left at Wall. It is out now. You can get it on Tubi for free. You can get it on YouTube free with ads. It's on a bunch of other platforms, too. You can just type in Left at Wall. It'll come up. And ronplacone.com has my podcast and my Substack. And I got a new podcast coming out soon. I'm the new co-host of Disinfo Detox with Nolan Higdon, and we're going to be launching officially with Project Censored in the next coming weeks. We're just working to get all the details settled there. So follow me on Substack for that. Right now, we're just doing kind of like a soft launch on Wednesdays. So you can get that at my Substack, just Ron Placone on Substack. And yeah, that is all the things. Thank you so much for what you do. I'm a big fan, and it's awesome to be on with you. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. A Thousand Natural Shocks, a Bad with Money podcast, is hosted by me, Gabe Dunn, and edited by me, Gabe Dunn. Theme song by Zach Sherwin and Sam Barbera. Love you guys. Bye.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.